answer is yes, education should be controlled locally, and yes, parents should have final authority in the education of their children. I've spent many years of my life in education. I've been in public schools most of my life. I did graduate from a private high school, however, my last 3 years. And I went to the night school at a community college. I went to the University of Washington for my undergraduate degree, and I went to Harvard Medical School. So I've seen a whole range of schools in education. I served on a private Christian school board, North Seattle Christian School, for 3 years. 2 years as the treasurer, 1 year as the president, and boy, did we run in the black, and boy, did we work hard to do that. That's the kind of attitude, can-do attitude we need in the Senate, my friends. We can do more with less, but our schools aren't. Now, having said that, the federal government's only legitimate role in education, in my opinion, would be to require that English be our national language. This would be very cost effective. It wouldn't cost the taxpayer any money, and it would be more effective than the Department of Education has ever been. Local control of schools is good because it gives teachers and principals and parents and school boards the opportunity to get involved. Participation. Education is a hands-on, active process. It's not a passive, sit back, let somebody else slice the bread for me. So we need local involvement for sure. And I also was a homeschooling parent. For 2 years, my wife and I homeschooled our daughters, and now they're in a private school. So education's important, but it should be local, and the parents should have the final say. Thank you.
As your first Eastern Washington Republican U.S. Senator, the first bill I introduce will be the abolishment of the Department of Education. As Mr. Coday just said, our federal government is dithering in things they were never intended to be into, and education is one of them. I agree wholeheartedly. English needs to be our only official language of this country. Unions, our teacher unions, 99.9% of their funds go to Democrats. I have been actively involved with the teachers that I've been involved with at Connell to please sign their form, request their money to go to their candidate of choice. We all must stand up and do what we can to stop this fallacy that's going on. The salvation of our country will come from the homeschoolers. Every contest that you witness, the spelling bees, the geographic, everything is won by homeschoolers. Our nation was at 2.5 decades ago with the world as far as where we ranked. Today, with all the money we're throwing at this educational process, we're at 33rd. You tell me it's working.
For the fourth question and the final for this first round of questions, what role should the government play in reducing abortions, and will you support pro-life legislation? I'll start this question with Mr. Widener.
Yes, absolutely. I was a minister for 14 years. In fact, I was talking to the youth pastor out here. My degree was in youth and family work. I spent 3 years as a youth minister in northern New Jersey. Those were the other 3 years, other than the year I went to college in Minnesota. We tell people we did 3 years in Jersey before we moved back. I was ordained in the Christian Missionary Alliance, and I spent 11 years as a pastor. I started my first church at the age of 25, started 2 other churches outside of that. I've long been a proponent of pro-life activities. I am pro-life myself. I believe that life begins at conception, and I believe that the right to life is a constitutional issue. We do have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so, yes, absolutely. I went back to Washington, D.C. when I was exploring the opportunity of running for the United States Senate. I met with a lot of different people. One of the first people I met with was the National Right to Life organization. So unlike Patty Murray, who has a 100% Planned Parenthood voting record, she has a 100% narrow voting record. I will be an advocate in the United States Senate for pro-life causes.
I too am pro-life with 6 kids. That's probably not a big question. I want you to ask Patty Murray a question next time you see her. Ask her at what point in her fetal gestation and development she became important. If she can't identify the day or the exact event, then I suggest that points out the point that we shouldn't be deciding who lives and who dies, even at that level. I am pro-life. As far as the federal government's role, I would like to see a constitutional amendment that protects life from the moment of conception. Until that time, until it's clearly stated, I support using Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution to limit the federal court's jurisdiction in hearing abortion cases and leave it up to the states. And I'll tell you why I think that's appropriate at this time. Because states already define when legal death occurs. And they're different from state to state. States, therefore, should be defining when legal birth occurs, at least until we change that in a constitutional manner throughout the nation. We cannot make the decision who deserves life and who does not. I realize it's an emotional issue. I realize there's strong feelings. Being in church and working with people out in the world, I've seen people facing that difficult crisis in their lives. But I cannot change what is in my heart and soul that screams out that all life is worthy of protection, all human life. Thank you.
I thank my colleagues for standing strong on this issue along with me. As a Christian and a medical doctor, I understand that life does begin at conception and ends at natural death. I understand that the right to life is God-given, just as the authors of the Declaration of Independence understood. It doesn't come from the country or the state, it comes from God. And the duty of the nation, according to the Declaration, is to secure our rights. So our federal government, as well as our state governments, have a duty under the Declaration and the Constitution, and under God as our witness, to defend the right to life, from conception to natural death. And that is my position. I agree with Ronald Reagan in his State of the Union address on January 25th, 1988, that we need a human life amendment. Absolutely we do. So that it's so clear that no Supreme Court in the future will ever mess with it. I have been endorsed by Dan Kennedy, head of Washington Human Life, because he realizes how clearly I understand the issue and how well I will articulate it on the floor of the Senate on your behalf and on the behalf of people everywhere, the unborn throughout our state, as well as the elderly. As a medical doctor, I've been pro-life. My practice is pro-life. When other practitioners work for me, I make them sign a contract saying they will not perform abortions or refer to elective abortion. As a medical student, I wouldn't go in rooms where they were being done, though I got frowns for doing that, and I fought against Initiative 1000 that legalized physician-assisted suicide in Washington. Thank you.
As a father of four, one of the best and most memorable moments of my life was watching every one of my children come into this world. And it was special. And if you have witnessed that, you'll know how special it is to watch my wife shed tears when Brandy, my firstborn, was special. I've already told you my stance. And God have mercy on our country. Thank you.
Amen.
I too am against abortion, and I believe that it should be a state's responsibility and not a federal responsibility. The federal government has no business in there, and if anything, it should be the courts that deal with this, whether life is conception or at a certain stage. So I would, that's where I stand. So.
Okay, I just like to remind everybody, if you have any questions, if you filled out question cards, they need to be handed in at this point. And we're now going to move on to the lightning round. It's just going to be a really quick yes or no, 10 questions to each of the candidates.